So I've been asked this question: how do we make sure that we're buying a very good quality apartment, property, townhouse, villa in Dubai? I'm going to answer that question in detail over a 3 or 4 part series. Stick to the end to understand how you can protect your investment and make sure that you're buying super high quality. My name is Fahd Dawood. I talk about real estate internationally, locally, Dubai specifically sometimes, Europe, and my life and our path to financial bliss. I'm also the author of The Intelligent Real Estate Investor. I can help you with an initial strategy session, pricing or negotiation, evaluating a particular property, if you're in the handover process of a particular property that you've already bought, or if you're looking for VIP, fully customized service to help you from A to Z to acquire the best property match for you, reach out to me. There is a link in the description on how you can work one-on-one with me. If you've got general questions, you can always put it in the comment section and I take them up just like this one and answer them on YouTube. So, some time ago, I was approached by one of my subscribers and they asked me, look, we're reading a lot of conflicting news, not news, articles in the newspapers from neighbors that, the quality of apartments in Dubai, the actual finish, the actual make is sometimes, I wouldn't say dubious, but sometimes people aren't happy with the kind of quality that they're receiving. So they asked me and they came to me and said, how do we identify a good quality apartment or a good quality developer? I'm going to take you on a little journey, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, I think, and I'm going to explain and take you why we are where we are and what would be a suitable remedy if you're looking to buy quality. Are you okay with that? Can I take you on a little bit of a journey to give you part history of what has happened and transpired because of where we are, and then take you to a solution? Is that okay with you? Say yes. Okay, if you've said yes, then keep watching this video. If you've said no, then you can skip directly to the last part, either it will be part 3 or part 4, and understand what my solutions are that I'm offering. Okay, check this out. So you all know that Dubai or the UAE is a relatively new country, right? So the UAE came together in 1971, and before that they were called as something like the Trucial States. So the Dubai used to be on its own, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, so on and so forth. And the people over here, I wouldn't say that they were living in tents back in the 50s and 60s. I'm sure there were buildings there, but it was a splattering of buildings. Like if you go online to look for Dubai, the way that Dubai is from that time, you'll see there's very few buildings at that time. When did a lot of buildings start getting built? I would recommend, or I would say 60s, even if not the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? As the population kept going up, there was this need for a lot of apartments to accommodate a ton of people, right? As Dubai's population kept going up, so buildings kept coming up, right? Now, something you've got to recognize with these buildings is the people who were constructing these buildings in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s were essentially speaking, in some parts, the government, okay, because they were providing low-cost housing, and some of the large businesses, okay, the names are famous, the Guerrers, the Lutas, the Fatames, so on and so forth. Like, the large business people, they saw that there was an opportunity. Sometimes the land was given to them by the government to develop buildings on it and then rent them out to expats, so on and so forth. Fair enough. Nothing wrong with that. Perfect so far. Something you've got to consider that happened with these buildings is you've got to remember that the people who were building them and developing them, they were building their own assets, right? Because these were buildings that were going to be given out on long-term lease. Out to who? To expats, to anybody who cares to live there, right? But who's going to be ending up owning the buildings? Either the government would continue to own the building, or these large conglomerates, these large business families, or the developers would continue to own the building. So it was in their best interest to make sure that the buildings were built well, good quality, right? Because if you build these buildings with poor quality, guess what? The asset remains with them, and every so many years they're gonna have to spend more money in the upkeep of those buildings, right? Does that make sense so far? Number two, so essentially speaking, they were building to lease these buildings out. They were building to lease them. So these were lease purpose buildings, okay? Which means that asset was going to be owned by them, which means that they put in a lot of blood, money, and sweat to ensure that the quality was very high. Now, something you need to also understand that Dubai or the UAE, being a young nation, was not creating their own standards, okay? But Dubai, being ambitious, wanting to be the best in everything, was essentially adopting and bringing international standards to the UAE. So another thing that obviously helped the international standards, okay? Another thing that helped the construction industry, whether it was super fast or it took some time, was bringing in international standards from the rest of the world to ensure that the construction industry is adhering to these international standards. Now, here's the thing. My father, who's an architect by profession, bless him, he's still working actually. He worked with Dubai municipality for 27 or 28 years, right? He was overseeing housing units, so on and so forth. Just to let you guys know, these standards, again, were being implemented by Dubai municipality, okay? Municipality. So now, what do you end up having? You end up having large invested businesses. Like, these aren't fly-by-night operators. Like, the government's going to be here forever, right? These families they call Dubai UAE home. This is their nation. It's their home. Dubai municipality bringing in international standards in terms of what kind of construction material can be used. If a certain tile is getting used, till what level of fireproofing must it have? You know, and so Dubai kept introducing international standards to ensure that the quality of the building was decently high, right? Fair enough. Fast forward to 2003, okay? 2003 is boom time. To 2008 is absolute boom time. And who comes in to develop is foreigners, okay? Because Dubai opened freehold. Dubai essentially said anybody from anywhere can come into the UAE, Dubai specifically. Let's just talk about UAE, Dubai, and can build and sell property for commercial purposes, okay? Which is fine. This is also a commercial enterprise. The only difference is they were going to continue to own these apartments because they were going to lease them long term. They want to lease them out for 30 years, 40 years, repeat. And the higher the quality of the building, the less the long-term maintenance, right? But now when you've got developers building and their main interest is to sell, okay? Sell. Nothing wrong with sell. But that's what they want to do. Guess what? They want to build their buildings. The developers that come in to develop freehold and then sell it to anybody and anyone, right? Because freehold essentially allowed you, anybody to actually buy. Developers wanted to build with the lowest price possible and then sell, right? If you can see this, sell at the highest price possible to make what? Their profit, right? So they want to make the most handsome profit as possible, okay? Now, this is where corners get cut. This is where sometimes top-notch material might not get used, right? You got to think about it. Now, I'm not saying all the developers are the same. There are good developers. I'm not naming anybody, right? There's a reason I'm not naming anybody. But the prime motivation here is quick money, okay? Whereas over here, their money is coming back from lease. But here, they're going to be looking at bringing money back in immediately. And they're not responsible for making sure that they are holding on to this asset for a long time. Now, something that I'm going to explain to you with regards to international standards being implemented by Dubai municipality. So does it mean that the corners that are getting cut over here are going to affect the durability of the building? Is it going to be a cheaply constructed building that, God forbid, if a strong wind blows, something might happen? Generally, no. Why? Because Dubai municipality, the government, continues to play its role. Dubai municipality brings it international standards, okay? Now, what does that mean, okay? I'll give you one small example, okay? When a building is getting constructed, let's say this is 3 floors. Each time a floor, or it's called roofing, gets done is a big event, okay? Concrete mixers come in, generally it's an all-night event when they put the roof in of the particular floor, and a Dubai or any municipality instructor or inspector might be on site at that time during that night to ensure that the concrete, if you've actually ever seen one of those big trucks with those concrete mixers, they're going to be pouring in concrete. The inspector's going to make sure, because here's essentially what happens, okay? This flooring or roofing that they put in is pre-mixed as concrete at the factory or at the cement factory. It has a certain chemical that delays the cement from formulating or from getting hardened, so that it allows it to be put into the roof, okay? Now, if it is delayed by a certain period, like for instance, this could happen. I've actually seen this happen in 2007. There was truck 1, truck 2, truck 3, truck 4. And for some reason, I think the suction pipe or the generator that was supposed to take the concrete up to the roof was faulty or not working. So that truck 4, while it's going around, while it's keeps on churning and keeps its concrete fresh to be poured, it was too late for that concrete to go into the roof. So the Dubai municipality or the municipality inspector at that stage, what he's going to do is he's going to say, sorry, truck 4, you cannot pour this concrete for the roof of that building. Sorry. And if it gets too late, truck 3, you can't pour this concrete. Doesn't matter to him. Why? Because he's under strict instructions from the government to ensure that international standards get met. Now, I'm making this very simple. It isn't as simple as this. There are some variances allowed, okay? What are the variances? Essentially speaking, sometimes 3 could be okay under certain circumstances. Sometimes 4 could be okay. My father, who's an architect and obviously knows much more about this, explained to me that even if concrete from 3 and 4 did get poured, it wouldn't really be that bad. It would pretty much be still okay, but it wouldn't be up to international standards. So the Dubai government or the governments of the Emirates enforce it fairly strictly, okay? Even if it costs the developer. Now, so just to give you a little bit of an idea, like just because they're building just to sell, they're not going to be able to cut international standards that the government, the municipality is implementing. And I'll give you a real life example, and then you can think of real life examples from your life to understand. So, you know, when this roof gets done, a sample from the roof, a small sample, goes to a main testing laboratory. Okay, so the same concrete that they've used on the roof of the floor, the first floor, second floor, third floor, a sample goes to the main lab. Okay, it goes to a laboratory that is linked. Can you see it? It's a lab. Okay, lab is linked to the government. What do? This sample is supposed to reach its full strength at a certain number of days. I think at day 3 or day 4 it should reach 30% strength, and then day 5 it should reach 60% strength, and by day 10 it should reach 80 or 90% strength. I don't remember the exact, but I'm giving you an example. Essentially speaking, what the lab does is tests the samples that were put in the floor, because you know what, guess what, real human beings are going to be living here, correct? So it tests that the roof or the floor strength should reach its maximum capacity within a few number of set days. And if it doesn't, the inspector could come back on site and fail them. Okay, Dubai, most of the Emirates, we're not talking about as it might be in certain countries, without naming countries, where you could just pay the inspector off and say, can you look the other way? And there's real life examples for you to look into different countries in the area, in the region, not this region, but you know, I'm not going to name anywhere. Bridges have been constructed and then they've fallen after the inauguration, where buildings have fallen. Okay, just to let you know that international standards, even for earthquakes, there is a certain level of flexibility that a building will always have to allow an earthquake to move the building, and the building shouldn't fall. And I remember in 2005, a building in Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, fell. And I would imagine perhaps that the construction was not at par to international standards. Again, with respect to international standards, I'll use red to explain why fire is very, very strongly controlled, and Dubai keeps learning from it and keeps getting better and better and better. Essentially speaking, you know, the civil defense or the fire and civil defense, they control all the material that goes into the construction of the building. And if any material might be, you know, there's going to be a certain fire resistance to a certain degree, and if it's not fulfilling that requirement, they're going to fail it, and then it's not going to get put up. So just so you understand a little bit of a background of when they started going into, we just have to sell and exit, things started falling to the side, to the extent that you have to remember that this period, 2003 to 2008, and my father was working in one area of let's use blue for this. He's working in one area of the Palm Jumeirah, right? Palm Jumeirah, and that's like the fronts over there, like there. And if you know, villas are facing both sides, right? Villas are facing both sides. I think he was helping somebody with some consulting over there, and you know, because he had 27, 28 years of experience, you know, because they were under so much pressure to deliver so fast, like the pace over here was super fast, they didn't even recognize that one of the groundwork that they were laying, like, you know, if the villa is facing this way and the sea is here, the door is going to be here, entrance to the villa. They took the same villa the way it was supposed to be and started trying to construct it on this side so that the door was here facing the sea on the other side. It was a good thing my father caught it much in advance. I think it did end up costing some money perhaps, but you know, he caught it much in advance and he got it rectified. But all that said and done, I believe, personally speaking, it was 2012 and 2013 when all this construction had been finished. By 2012, 2013, when real families started moving into the so you can see 2013, when real families started moving into these apartments and started living there and started sometimes saying, hey, you know what, the construction is a little subpar, the plumbing is not pretty good, it's leaking, etc. That's when people started recognizing that real families are going to be living in these, and the quality has to come up. Has it come up yet? Watch the next one to understand the vicious cycle or circle that's played out between the actual entities responsible for your apartments and the way they come to you, and why that vicious cycle ends up leading to sometimes subpar development. And then I'm going to close this off in the end with an actual solution of how you can buy top quality. Ciao for now. Check me on the other video. Bye.